his performances for the 21s this season have been so consistent, and I think that's kind of what puts him ahead of some of the others that could have been picked for this, and there are several others that could have been picked.
Jay here for Stretford Paddock. This is Academy Review. Joining me as always is Finn, otherwise known as Academy Scoop. How are you doing, Finn? You okay?
Yeah, looking forward to this season review.
This is it. This is the season review. It's not a weekly review like we normally do. We're looking back on the season, and it's fair to say it's been a lot more successful for the Academy than it was for the first team.
Yeah, most of these weeks I'm glad to be able to bring you a little bit of positivity when the first team are not doing so well. Yeah. Hopefully we'll be able to recap over some of the bright moments of the season and some of the successes.
This has been like, my weekly sort of pick me up.
Dopamine
that's it. You watch United first team, they usually lose, everything's doom and gloom, and then you'll come in and you'll tell us how well Adam Lawrence's side or however well the players have been doing, and that gives us a bit of cheer. So hopefully that'll continue in this vein. Now, looking back on the season, then where do you want to start?
So we'll look over some of the numbers from the last season for both the under-18s and the 21s. So for the under-18s first, in the Premier League North, obviously finished runners-up to Manchester City, which is disappointing. Yeah. But when you look at the wider context, you can still say that it was a resounding success of a season. So it was 24 games played, 20 wins, 3 draws, 1 loss, 90 goals scored, and 24 conceded.
It's a tough league, that, to put those kind of numbers up and not win it.
Yeah.
So it shows you the standards there.
Yeah, exactly. It was the highest ever point tally of a runners-up team in the under-18 Premier League, conceding about a goal a game, but scoring almost 4 a game. That's not a bad average. That's
not too shabby, that is it. I think we say this every week, but they can obviously be very proud of that record and proud of what they've achieved. There's no shame whatsoever in finishing second, and when you're winning 20 out of 24 games and losing just 1 and scoring 90 goals in the process, then they all deserve a lot of credit. And it does give me hope. I was on the radio the other day and someone was saying to me about United and the mess we're in, and what have we got to attract players, and what have we got to be positive about. And one of the sort of the aspects I said was a positive was our academy team, and I think that you cannot ignore that.
Absolutely. And last season in terms of silverware is a little bit different because the under-18s won that domestic treble under Adam Lawrence, which was obviously such a big success story. But I don't necessarily think that this season is any different in terms of the individual development that we've seen in the players. Obviously, they want to be winning silverware, but it's not the be-all and end-all. The first priority is always going to be the development of the players. So whether they win or lose, just having the experience of playing at this level and experiencing loss is actually really important for the young players as well. Definitely seen as a big success for the season. Obviously, in the FA Youth Cup, it was a semi-final exit to Aston Villa, who, to be fair to them, went on and beat City in the final to win the FA Youth Cup this season. And then in the UEFA Youth League, slightly disappointing qualifying round exit to AZ Alkmaar, who again went really far in the competition. I'd say big success of a season, personally.
No, I agree, and I think that it's one thing we pride ourselves on is the academy. It's obviously when people talk about United DNA and what does that mean, I think it always means giving the academy an opportunity, having a strong academy, and sort of leaning into those players in the first team as well. And we've seen that as well, haven't we? I know you're going to get into it a little bit later on some of the individuals, but it's obvious the talent's there because we've seen some of those players make that step up. Yeah,
absolutely. And also the kind of character that these players show when they're playing. I think under Adam Lawrence, he's created a side that are so consistent and so kind of headstrong in their mentality that you always know what to expect from them. And on almost every occasion, they, just wipe the floor with their opponents and really look like the better drilled and kind of more experienced side. And I think that's a testament to the kind of club culture of the academy and the expectations, which are always going to be so high. We'll go on to the under-21s next. So it was more of a kind of mixed bag for the 21s in terms of the results. I think that's kind of a symptom of just the nature of the team, because unlike the under-18s, which is more predictable, there are so many players either going out on loan, going into the first team or playing for the under-18s. Harder job for Travis Binion to do to kind of balance that squad and be able to predict who he's going to have available. And as a result, the results are a little bit more up and down. So we finished 5th in the PL2 overall. 20 games, 11 wins, 3 draws, 6 losses, 45 goals scored and 31 conceded. So again, a little bit more of a mixed bag, but not a terrible season by any means. Obviously, we went out in the playoff semi-final to Man City again. It's a bit of a recurring pattern there, which is a little bit frustrating. But yeah, again, you know, it's not all about the silverware. We've seen so many players come through into the 21s, stepping up from the 18s this season, or coming in from abroad. You know, Sekou Kone, for example. So again, you know, a lot to be proud of for the under-21s this season and what they've achieved outside of the silverware. And you still see that same kind of culture and DNA throughout the age groups, similar to the under-18s and the 21s. So yeah, mixed bag, but definitely positives.
Yeah, I like what you said there. I completely agree. And we've seen one or two players who've really stood out as well. And it's not easy, is it, when you've got this sort of almost conveyor belt or revolving door of players, because some of them are making a step up, some of them going out on loan, and just, you know, actually some of them sort of, you know, the manager trying new things or whatever. But I think they can be proud again of what they've achieved, and the fact that we've had so many decent performances and so many players that have stepped up as well. And I'm sure Ruben Amorim's looked at both the under-18s and the under-21s and been pleased, because there's players that he has tapped into and players that he can tap into moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've seen that the under-21s in particular have been quite a good springboard this season for a few of the players that have started to get chances. So Harry Amas towards the second half of the season, Tyler Fredrickson, those two have played a few games now in the Premier League and really held their own and looked like two really high quality players. Ayden Heaven, you know, when he signed from Arsenal, played a couple of games for the 21s before making that step up. And there are more players that have been with the 21s this season that have been on the fringes, you know, making the bench repeatedly. So yeah, I think what we've seen is the club are using the under-21s well as a kind of transition platform to go on and kick on for the first team, and obviously give Ruben Amorim some more options at his disposal. So yeah, I think that's kind of the difference between the 18s and the 21s. The 21s are described more as a kind of transition team, and then the 18s is more of a kind of developmental, there's more stability there. But let's do some end of season awards.
Okay. Okay. Let's get into the awards then. So these are the awards you've chosen here. You've got some awards that you want to dish out to players that you think deserve them. Yeah,
I've just picked some categories. So we've got player of the season, most underrated player, most improved player, goal of the season, surprise performer of the season, and then breakout star of next season. So a little bit of a prediction.
So are you doing these for? Is it one player for the under-21s, one player for the under-18s? How are you doing this?
Not quite as black and white as that, just a bit of a mix, because most of these players have played across both age groups.
You can tell us then how you're doing it.
But for all of these, there's no clear winner for each one.
Right.
You know, there's been so many bright individual performers this season, so it's impossible to pick, you know, one clear winner for each one. And anyone that has been named here, there are, you know, 3 or 4 others that could have been picked. So
no, I mean, there's so many names that we speak about whenever me and you chat each week, that I know how high the standard is, how many top performances we've seen throughout the season by so many players that you keep getting excited about, players that I've seen, as you mentioned there, in and around the first team as well. So I get it's not easy to sort of single out one player, especially when you've got so many youngsters who are doing well. So go on, we'll start with, what do you want to start with?
Let's start with the big one, player of the season.
Go on then.
For me, Jack Morehouse is kind of the name that comes to mind. His performances for the 21s this season have been so consistent, and I think that's kind of what puts him ahead of some of the others that could have been picked for this. And there are several others that could have been picked. But yeah, his performances are just so exciting to watch. You know, the power with which he carries the ball in the final third. He's one of those attacking midfielders that is just really, really exciting to watch and can really be devastating for opponents, and someone that kind of fits the bill for a modern profile that's becoming more desirable in the modern game. I'd also mention Tyler Fletcher, because I think he's another player that goes under the radar a little bit. So he could have been in the underrated category, but I think his performances across the 18s and 21s this season Again, so consistent, so much quality there. He plays in a deeper role to his brother Jack, who's obviously always getting, plaudits for his performances. Both of them have been, really bright this season. Tyler plays in the deeper role, kind of more of a deep line playmaker, pulls the strings from deep, and just puts a shift in every game. Has started to pick up quite a few assists actually in the latter stages of the season, and just really trusty, really reliable. So I think him and Jack Morehouse would be my players of the season. But again, so many names to pick from. You could easily put Chido Obi there, based on just the sheer amount of goals he scores. Gabriel Biancheri, James Scanlon. There's so many names, but they're the two that I'd pick. Next, I'd go on to the most underrated player of the season, because I think there are names that we always bring up and that we always talk about, but there are so many that kind of go under the radar but are still, providing such consistent performances. And for me, the obvious one is James Scanlon. 22 goals and 7 assists across the age groups this season. He's one of those players who may not necessarily be the flashiest, but he will always give you a 7 or 8 out of 10 performance at the very least. He became a full international player for Gibraltar this season.
Go on, lad.
That's some achievement for his age. I think because of some of the other players maybe being a little bit more flashy and a little bit more exciting in that sense, he can go under the radar a little bit, but he's another player that I think has done himself really proud this season and kind of kicked on a level from last season. I'd also mention Biancheri and Jacob Devaney in the category as being a little bit underrated for this season. Again, Biancheri just scoring goals for fun. Last season he was kind of a little bit of a rotation option in his first year for the under-18s, and this season, apart from a couple of injuries, he's really stepped up as that first choice option and really added a new dimension to United's attack in terms of the profile of striker he is. Very different to someone like a Chido Obi, because he's small, diminutive. The ball just sticks to him, and he can be a little bit more of a kind of versatile player in the final third. And Devaney, captained United's side in the FA Youth Cup, just puts in such a shift in the midfield, never stops running, never stops putting tackles in, and brings, again, lots of quality on the ball. Some of his performances, like against Arsenal in the FA Youth Cup, going deep into extra time, I think he was fantastic. So definitely deserves a shout as an underrated player. Next, I would look at the most improved player, and feel free to mention any names that you have in mind. I'm going
to let you get a free list, and I'm going to come back at you. Because there's a few that I can see that on your list who I've heard you talking about a lot, and who I'm excited about. But I'll let you get to the end of your list before I start weighing in, because there's a couple I want to mention.
So for the most improved player, again, I'd put Tyler Fletcher there, because I think last season, I think Jack Fletcher was the one of the two that a lot of people put the focus on. Plays in a more attacking position, and completely deserves all the credit he gets for his performances, but I think the way that Tyler Fletcher has really come into his own role this season in that kind of deep lying role has been really impressive, and he's become such a consistent member of that under 21 and under 18 side. And I'd also mention Jaden Camerson for the most improved player. It's similar. He's kind of just grown really into this role for the under 21s. Previously he was playing for the under 18s. Just brings that consistency, reliability, both defensively and offensively. So consistent. And I'd say also he's always been solid defensively, but he's become a real threat in the final third. Puts in some really dangerous crosses and links up well, especially with Mantato on that right side this season. Really, really great improvement seen from them, on top of already being great players. And then goal of the season, also I'm going to give it to Jaden Camerson.
Camerson racking up the awards here.
That 83rd minute equaliser against Arsenal in the FA Youth Cup. They were 2-1 down. They'd be the better side for the majority of the game, and it looked like it might just be one of those days where it doesn't work out, despite the many chances that we had. But Camerson stepped up, took responsibility, received the ball on kind of the right side of the box, saw the opening and just smashed it across goal, top corner. Beautiful strike from range. And you know, it was not only the quality of the goal, but the moment that it came in, because that got United back into the game, sent the game to extra time, and United went and won it through Mantato. Just such an important goal, and so much kind of character and personality shown in kind of having the confidence to take that shot. So yeah, goal of the season, Jayden Camerson for me.
Just before we move on, a couple of things I wanted to pick up on. You mentioned there about James Scanlon. Now he's like a steady sort of 7 and 8 out of 10. Yeah. And sometimes we see that with players, don't we, that do make the step up. They might not be the star of the academy team. Like Jesse Lingard, for example, wasn't the star of that academy team. I think all eyes were on Ravel or Paul Pogba. I know they obviously, Pogba especially went on to do well, and Ravel we knew didn't quite work out, but you go forward into the next sort of FA Youth Cup winning team. Everyone knew how talented Garnacho was, for example. Garnacho was probably the one that was most spoken about, but Kobe Mainoo was one that people went, actually, you want to keep an eye on him.
Yeah.
He's the one, actually. And then as sort of time progresses, you realise why people were saying that, because of how talented he is, and he's the one that sort of, so at least now, looks like he's got a brighter future at Manchester United than Garnacho has. So sometimes it is that player that just that sort of consistently good performances for the academy team that can make the step up. It's not necessarily the one that's everyone's talking about. Sometimes it is that one who's almost a little bit under the radar. And Camerson, who's obviously been in and around the first team, has been on the bench and done really well. That goal you mentioned as well, it's bittersweet when you talk about that goal, because I can't help it. I'm always the same. It's like, when people talk about the Michael Owen goal in the 4-3, what spoils that for me that season, we didn't win the league. I know that sounds silly, especially now when we're sat in 15th, but it's like that goal helps us win a title. It always taints it a little bit to me, like the Leon
especially
game.
Because
there's not that. It was great at the time, but look back, we didn't win out because of it.
And I think especially with the frustration of the semi-final against Villa, because again we were the better team in that game, didn't take our chances and then lost it on penalties, and it was one of those ones where, I think if we'd won that game, I saw United going on and winning the FA Youth Cup, which is so important to the club to be winning. So a little bit bittersweet, but not taking anything away from Camerson. I'm going to let you crack on, because there's a name that I want to get to, and I think you are going to mention him. So what's your next category? So the next one is the biggest surprise performer.
Okay.
So the player that maybe wasn't expected to perform as well as he did. For me, that's Jim Thwaites. Obviously a first-year scholar, signed a scholarship deal last summer. And he's come into the side in the midfield for the under-18s, and honestly just been such a joy to watch this season.
Brilliant.
I'd always heard good things about him, in the younger age groups, but kind of didn't expect him to just look so at home at this level, and just look so kind of comfortable playing with the under-18s. One of those kind of players. It doesn't look like he's English. It looks like he's a Spanish midfielder. In the way he plays, the press resistance, the technical ability, the agility, ability to turn out of pressure, and obviously the really his signature is set pieces. The amount of free kicks that he's scored this season is just absurd. It feels like literally whenever he steps up for a free kick, it feels more likely that he'll score it.
That's unbelievable. That's ridiculous.
He's just got this amazingly consistent technique, Beckham-esque.
But you got to say it.
You got to say it.
Do you know what I mean? I'm glad you used the term Beckham. You didn't go to a player from a different club. Because we've had these discussions before, haven't we?
I made a mistake earlier in the season, but Beckham-esque definitely. But yeah, really, really enjoyed watching him this season. And I think for a lot of people, he's been quite a surprise because there wasn't too much hype around his name before this season. So yeah, really been good to watch this season. And again, I'd also mention Jack Morehouse in that conversation, just because he's struggled so much with injuries in the last 2 or 3 years that for him to come back into this under-21 side, sustain availability and fitness for the majority of the season and be such a consistent high-level performer has been a really pleasant surprise. So I'd also put him in that category. But yeah, Jim Thwaites would be my main shout there.
Yeah, Jim Thwaites, obviously, every time, you're right, because every time I speak to you, you mention Jim Thwaites every week, it's like he scored another free kick. Like, what is going on with this kid? It's so refreshing to see. And obviously, if he can get anywhere near the first team and bring any of that to the first team, that'd be phenomenal, because we struggled, don't we, with set pieces?
Yeah, I believe he's travelled for United's post-season tour in Asia this week. So.
It's interesting to see what Amorim does with. I know they've obviously got this post-season double header, but in the pre-season as well over in the tour in America, it'd be interesting to see who goes on that, what sort of minutes they get, and whether they're sort of they're given an opportunity on the back of that next season, because sometimes players go on pre-season, don't they, or post-season or whatever, and it's neither here nor there. The manager's not really thinking about them in terms of the first team. But on the flip side, sometimes you do see players acquit themselves well, obviously impress the manager, and he says, okay, let's see what you're about and give him a bit of a chance.
I think with how aggressively Amorim and United want to clear out this first team squad, they will be looking to the academy to kind of fill some of those gaps temporarily. So I think it's such a good opportunity for some of these young players who are, travelling with the squad for this post-season tour and pre-season, to really show what they're about. And I think there could be a couple of surprises in there. It's really good to see that Shea Lacey's travelled, because we've spoken about him a lot, and it's been difficult for him because of all the injuries that he's had to deal with. But whenever he does play, most of the time he's the best player on the pitch, and just kind of looks like something different in the final third, really special talent. So it would be so good for him to be able to get some minutes in one of these games. And there's so many players in that squad who could get a chance and an opportunity to impress. So it's quite an exciting time. Yeah,
definitely. Shea Lacey, glad you mentioned him as well, because a talent that even people like myself who don't watch the academy anywhere near as much as you do know about Shea Lacey.
Yeah, he's one of those players you hear about.
Everyone's chatting about him. Everyone's got high expectations, and hopefully, if he stays injury free, he can live up to some of them. I think you got one final category.
Yeah, so a little bit more of a prediction for next season. So we're going to be thinking about the potential breakout talent of next season. I've kind of suggested one for the under-18s and then one for the first team.
Sounds good.
So for the first team, I think there's a real chance that Bendito Mantato
He's the player I was waiting for you to get to. I know how much you love him. I know how much you rave about him. Rightly so, from what I've seen as well. And it looks like, if you're talking about the first team, there could be a gap there for a player like that.
Yeah, it's a mix of two factors for me. One is just his quality as a player, and his kind of athleticism, which I think bodes really well for a first team transition. He's got that pace, the strength, the mobility as a wide player, and just the quality on the ball, his goal threat, creativity, and intelligence in his decision makings. He's got a really kind of well-rounded set of skills. And also his suitability in terms of, obviously, this Amorim system is a big change from what we're used to at United with the wing backs. He's a player who's played as a fullback, he's played as a winger, he's played on the left and the right, really versatile, and just seems to me like a great fit for a number of roles in this system. Could play at left wing back for me, could play at right wing back, similar to kind of the way Giovanni Kenda did at Sporting under Amorim.
100%.
I think there are some definite overlaps in their qualities, and he could even play on the right wing. You see the rumours about Brian Mbeumo being linked to United, and if he were to come in and you had Ahmad and Mbeumo on that right side, as soon as you get around to AFCON, they're gone. Right. So I think someone like Mantato would be a great option to kind of fill in the gap there and step up when those players aren't available. So I think keep an eye on him for next season, because he's definitely highly rated internally.
Good stuff. Such an exciting player. Whenever I've seen him, he gets you off your seat, doesn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. And then for the under-18s, I think this probably won't be a big surprise. But for the breakout star, I'm going to go with JJ Gabriel.
There's a reason that it's not a surprise, though, isn't there? There's a reason you've gone with him.
Yeah.
The kid's a phenomenon.
Obviously, got to preach some caution about getting too excited and hyping these young players too much. He's still incredibly young. He's 14. But just the fact that he's getting minutes off the bench for the under-18s, scoring goals. I think he scored 3 goals in about 45 minutes combined for the under-18s, and created another one. Within the England setup that he plays within, so highly rated, so often talked about. And yeah, it just seems one of those players that really stands out from his age mates, and could have something a little bit special. So really excited to watch him next season, hopefully for the under-18s. And yeah, I don't want to say too much than that, because there's always the risk of going overboard when they're this young. But definitely looking forward to watching him next season.
I can understand why you are. Obviously, a lot of hype around this incredibly young lad. He's done so well, and I'm looking forward to seeing so many of these players that you've mentioned there, Finn. I mean, I've heard you week in, week out talking about these players. I've seen some of the games, some of the clips myself. It's always difficult to gauge in it just at the levels whether they're going to make that step up, and I've spoken to you about this before. We've been fortunate enough to cover the tour the last few years, and I've seen players like Zidane Iqbal or Charlie Savage, for example, look on pre-season like they're ready for the first team, and then the managers had other ideas. But hopefully we will see a little bit more of these players during pre-season, and certainly going forward next season. There's so many names there that you've mentioned. It does give you a little bit of hope. Just with Manchester United, no matter how bad things are, you can always look at the academy. You can always look at some of these players. I'm not just saying we start throwing players in, constantly, but there's certainly some players there that I'd expect to be given opportunities. I'll just mention a couple of ones you've already mentioned.
Sure.
But I need you to calm me down a bit when it comes to Ayden Heaven, because, bro, I'm getting a bit sort of carried away when I'm watching him. I'm like, he just looks different class.
Yeah.
Like, he just does. I'm gutted he got that injury against Leicester, because I just think it could have been a very different end to the season. Genuinely,
yeah.
I do.
Honestly,
he
he's coming
looks
in.
mint.
Yeah, he doesn't put a foot wrong. Like, you can't fault anything he does. I was told around the January when we signed him that he's coming in as a potential first team option, but there definitely weren't expectations that he'd come in and be able to just do a job straight away. Martinez got injured very shortly after he arrived, and he stepped into his shoes, and he's, like you said, he's been mint. He's been amazing.
I'm just watching him, just thinking, it's weird, because it's usually the other way around at United. You're watching players and you're going, how is he there? For the wrong reasons. I'm watching him going, £1 million?
Yeah.
What is going? What? Yeah. I remember when they unveiled him and Dorgu, and it felt like he was an afterthought on the pitch.
Yeah.
It was like, Patrick Dorgu's going to come in. He's probably getting, you never know, there's one for the future perhaps. But he's just been absolutely different class, and just a modern type of defender as well.
Honestly, got everything that you could really ask for. I think the fact that he came through the ranks at Arsenal playing as a midfielder really helps in terms of his ball playing ability. Amorim loves his wide centre-backs to be aggressive and push right into the midfield, which is just perfect based on his skill set. Defensively, he looks really impressive, which was one of the doubts around him when he came in. People said, well, he's fantastic on the ball, but I'm unsure about him, defensively. He's been fantastic.
100%.
It's hard to kind of spot a clear weakness with him.
That's what I'm worried. That's what I'm struggling with. I'm like, what's going on here? He looks unreal.
Yeah.
Another player I want to talk to you about as well. You mentioned him briefly, Sekou Kone. There's a lot of expectation around this lad, but it's different when a player's brought in rather than just sort of brought through the ranks from the age of 13, 14. Obviously, Kone came in. We've seen, was it Oldham, I think, was the game where everyone was sort of raving about.
Yeah.
In a position that obviously we've got some weaknesses there. Do you think he could be one for this next season to get some more minutes? From
what's being said in the media, it seems quite likely that we might give him a loan for next year, which personally I think is quite a good decision depending on where you send him. You need to get the loan right. And
don't get me started on United loaning out players, because we've been shambolic when it comes to some of the decisions and the choices we've made, sending players to clubs where they're either. Well, basically, we've sent players to clubs where they've not even got any minutes. You're like, what's going on there?
Yeah, exactly. The rumour is that Lausanne in Switzerland are the team that...
that's Sir Jim on the phone.
Sir Jim on the phone. And, I'm not actually against that, because I think it's a nice kind of step between playing for United and playing for the youth teams. He could... when Brighton signed Moises Caicedo, they gave him, I think, 2 loans at different levels and really gave him a path of kind of progress towards being ready for the first team. And I think with a player like Sekou Kone, who hasn't come through the English academy system, it's a little bit different in terms of how he matures and develops as a player. And so I think a loan is probably the right move. But when you look at his skill set and his potential, it's very exciting, for sure.
No, definitely. And just one final one. We'll end on the player that sort of catapulted you into the stratosphere, really, when you broke this one. Chido Obi.
Yep.
It's been a bit of a strange one, hasn't it, with Chido, because I've been impressed with him. He's not got his goal yet for the first team, but when he's come on, you can see why there was so much hype. Yep. You can see why Arsenal was so reluctant to let him go, why so many clubs wanted him, and why so many United fans like yourself were buzzing when we got him. Next season, what do you see for him? Because he's already had about, I don't know, I'm guessing it must be about 7 or 8 games in the first team now.
Yeah,
in a couple. I think he's had a start too, hasn't he? So what do you see for him next season?
I see more of kind of the same development that we've seen in terms of him getting increasing minutes off the bench. I think that goal's got to be coming soon.
It is, isn't it? Do you know what, right? I said this the other day on the podcast. I was at the game against Villa, and there was one point when we got the penalty where Chido was stood near the penalty spot, and for about 10 seconds, I thought, I thought Bruno was going to give it him. But then, because I am Mr. Negative with penalties, I don't even watch him. I was panicking because I thought, oh my God, if he misses this, like, I know how talented he is, but just thought, oh, it'll be just horrible. Then I was sort of, just toiling with my own thoughts about, is this a positive or negative? And then I realised that actually he's giving it Ericsson. But it was. I thought this might be the moment, and it would have been exciting if he had, because my kids were there as well, and he would have potentially got to see his first goal for United. But he's going to get
equally. I think it'd be cool if he gets his first goal, outside of a penalty.
Not just giving it to him as like, go on, you have it.
And I've got a feeling with him that when that first goal does come, he's just going to hit the ground running, because it's what he does. He's every age group that he's played at, he has just scored goals for fun. He's got such an instinct for it, and all of the qualities to back that up. Both technically and physically, I just see him, really becoming a top level striker, and hopefully, if we can bring in a reliable first choice striker in the summer window, then it can take some of the pressure off him to perform, and can be really good for his development. So I think he'll definitely stick around the first team for next season. He'll probably pick up some more minutes, and as time goes on, he'll be more of a reliable kind of backup option in case of injuries. Obviously, Rasmus Højlund's future is kind of up in the air at the moment. So we'll see what happens, but still so excited about him. And the thing I'd point out is that so many clubs wanted to sign him. There's Bayern Munich, City, Chelsea, loads of top clubs are interested in him. Sekou Kone, Ajax, Barcelona, again, top European clubs. Ayden Heaven, Barcelona, Frankfurt, a couple other Premier League teams. We're starting to sign players that are in such high demand from other elite clubs around Europe and in England. And I think it's something that we haven't really done very well or taken advantage of in the last, 10 years. So it's a trend that I'm really, really feeling positive about under Ineos, and I think definitely gives you some hope for the future.
It does, and it sends a good message as well to potential players. I know, people say, oh, why would you come to United? But if you're a young player and you see the likes of Ayden Heaven, Chido, getting minutes, I know, Harry Amas as well, who was at Watford, wasn't he? He's been given minutes this season. You look at all these youngsters, you think, you know what, there's a path to the first team here, and if you back yourself and think you're good enough, once you're in that first team, then who knows what can happen. So
absolutely.
Been very good to see the young players doing well. Finn, I've absolutely loved this season with you doing Academy Review. We're going to be getting you on. I know you've been on the watch along. We're going to be getting you on more watch alongs, more podcasts as well. Plus, we're going to have some guests. We're going to get some guests out with joining us.
That would be great.
Review. So look forward to that. Make sure, if you're not doing already, you follow Finn Academy Scoop on all your socials and keep you up to date with all the latest movements when it comes to the Academy team and a few other bits and pieces as well. So make sure you're following him. That's been Finn. I've been Jay. This has been an end of season Academy Review. Don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for watching.